When the Detroit Lions first drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, there was the conversation about him not just being a running back, which he is a running back, but also just a pure weapon and trying to utilize him in the passing game. And when I really thought about it, I'm like, okay, I'm somebody that in general, drafting running backs in the first round isn't as attractive. But if you're drafting a running back who can be just as big of a threat in the passing game, you certainly have an argument. I mean, you're seeing guys like Christian McCaffrey get paid what he's getting paid, not just because he's the best running back. Yes, he is, but because of the weapon he is, right? He's basically a receiver as well. He's an extension in the passing game. That's what he can do. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs has that type of upside. And you saw that last year with the Detroit Lions early on. I mean, he was catching a handful of balls a game. And it was a little up and down all season. But Scottie Montgomery said recently that he believes there's another level Jahmyr Gibbs can get to as just in the passing game. And Tim Twentyman wrote about this on DetroitLions.com. So let's read it through it. And I'll got to give my thoughts. So Tim Twentyman wrote this: Lions looking to get Gibbs more work in the passing game. And he writes here, Jahmyr Gibbs certainly made his mark in the NFL as a rookie last season, rushing for 945 yards and 10 touchdowns to go along with 52 receptions for 316 yards and another score, totaling 1,261 scrimmage yards and 11 touchdowns. By the way, 50 balls, 50 catches as a rookie. It's pretty good. It's not bad. I think there's more he can get to, and we'll get to that in a second. Tim writes, he was third in scrimmage yards among all rookies, second in rushing yards, and top among all first-year players in touchdowns. He was second among all NFL running backs with 10 rushes of 20-plus yards. Lions assistant head coach and running backs coach Scottie Montgomery expects even more production from Gibbs in his second season, especially when it comes to the passing game. Quote, what we need from him from a passing game standpoint is to go to that next level, Montgomery said. I do think there's a certain difference between route running from the backfield and being a really, really sufficient and efficient check down runner versus what it is to be a great route runner, a guy that can run all types of choice routes. Quote, we know we've seen him do those things, but now you can go into the slot and do a little bit more down the field, some intermediate stuff. Can we continue to grow? Can we continue to grow him there? And that's what we're trying to do. That will be a fun part of Gibbs' game to watch develop. A soft tissue injury forced Gibbs to miss the open OTAs and mandatory minicamp practice this spring, but he's expected to be ready to come the start of training camp. Scottie writes, it's all over the tape, Montgomery said. I think that when you have guys that are super talented, that going from good to great is probably the hardest thing you have to do. And what we're doing, a lot of people think that when you get to that level, man, I've done a good job. But right now, they all feel like, man, we weren't good enough. And that's the way we're going to fight complacency. But it's also the way we're going to take the next step. And that is what we expect. We do need to see another step. Montgomery said, part of that step when it comes to Gibbs is consistency over the course of 17 games, which I think we can all agree there. No one can deny Jahmyr Gibbs' talent, especially in the open field. Like he's a tremendous running back, and he's just a huge threat with the ball in his hands, which is really the thing to take away. It's not just as a running back, but even out of the backfield. But obviously, Scottie saying what he said right there, and Tim writing it, lining him up in the slot, being utilized more in the passing game. And, we've been having this conversation all offseason with the departure of Josh Reynolds and, how do they fill that void? He was very reliable until he wasn't in the biggest game, but you get my point. They're missing a weapon. Who's gonna go and take that role? And I don't think it'll be one person. I think it'll be a collection of guys. I do think JMO will have he'll have a significant increase in production. Now, Antoine Green, will you see more of him? Khalif Raymond, does he even take on a bigger role? DPJ, what does he look like in this offense? I do think someone that we have to talk about more is Jahmyr Gibbs. What does Jahmyr Gibbs do in the passing game? I mean, this is someone who had 50 catches, 300 yards. But what level do you think he can get to? And when Scottie says there's another level there, I mean, he caught 50 passes for 300 yards, really, with all coming out of the backfield. But imagine if he's lining up at slot. Could he be a 500-600 yard receiver as a running back? And that's when you take your level personally from a really good running back to offensive player of the year candidate. Like you have guys like Alvin Kamara who, he's never been he's always been close to a thousand guy, but Christian McCaffrey is someone that actually has had 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards. I don't know if Jahmyr will ever do that, but can he have well over 1,000 rushing yards and 600 receiving yards? Can he have 2,000 yards from scrimmage? I think that's possible. 2,000 scrimmage yards from Jahmyr Gibbs with his talent, his ability to make guys miss, and his speed, his explosiveness. I think that's very possible. Now, you have David Montgomery, which I've argued he should be respected more. And I think people forget about that when they try and discuss the Jahmyr Gibbs breakout season. But the thing about David Montgomery is he's not a bad pass catcher. He's not. And they used him last year as well. But I think most of those reps should go to Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, there's going to be certain situations where, the defense is expecting Dave Montgomery when he's back there. Okay, they're going to pound the ball. But then Ben Johnson will dial something up and get Dave Montgomery the ball out of the backfield or find a way to get him the ball in the passing game. So I get you have to keep the defense on their toes. But Jahmyr Gibbs should be getting most of the workload in terms of the running backs catching passes. He should be getting most of that. He is just so talented. And I do believe Jahmyr Gibbs can be someone that gets, if not 2,000 scrimmage yards, close to. Like, I think he has a lot more to give in the receiving game as well. I agree with Scottie Montgomery. And it's something that you saw a little bit at Alabama, but in the NFL, I think you can see even more than that, personally. Like, I don't think there's any reason why Jahmyr Gibbs can't go out this year and get at least 500 receiving yards. I just don't think so. I mean, he had 300, a little over 300, and that was with a dip, at least with his involvement in the passing game. So imagine if he's more involved or they're utilizing him differently. He's not catching 7 passes for 30 yards. He's catching 7 passes for 56, 65 yards. I think there's more there. And I'm very excited. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, has the talent to go out and contend eventually, especially if you don't have David. I think that's a big part because with sharing a backfield, it kind of hurts you. But if he had his own backfield, yeah, staying healthy could be a question because of his size. But I think he'd be someone that can go out and challenge for Offensive Player of the Year. We've seen running backs do it that aren't as talented as Jahmyr Gibbs. So I am very curious. I think he would provide another element to this offense that it's just hard to stop them. Imagine you have J-Mo, who could take the top off. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's always open. Sam Laporta, always open. And now you have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's just a big play waiting to happen. Imagine using Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs at the same time, having Jahmyr in the slot and having Dave Montgomery in the backfield. Like, there's just so – Ben Johnson must be just sitting there thinking to himself, man, what I could do with Jahmyr Gibbs as a receiver too. Like, I do think there's something there. And last year, I just don't think you saw it as much as you hoped. At least I didn't. What do you guys think when it comes to Jahmyr Gibbs' ceiling in the passing game? What level can he get to? And really, what's his ceiling in terms of receiving yards? Do you think he could be a 1,000-yard receiver one day? I know it's crazy. I don't think so. But how high are you on him with his ability to catch passes? I think at least 500 yards this year should be expected. I think that's fair from Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't see why he can't get that amount. He should easily have 1,500 scrimmage yards this year. Expect that from Jahmyr Gibbs. But comment down below. What do you think? And don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Until next time, I'll catch you guys.